everybody. Welcome to a special, entirely USFL themed episode of Spring Fever. Whoo, baby! USFL is here. Saturday, Sunday, Easter Sunday, we get Easter football. I'm excited. You should be excited. Everyone's excited for some USFL. We got week one coming up. We have lines, we have totals. Let's break it down for you. I'm going to give you the lines and totals, and I'm going to do my team previews, my last two team previews, and then I'm going to give you USFL Jim's official picks for week one of the USFL. Game number one, we got the New Jersey Generals versus the Birmingham Stallions. Stallions, 3.5-point favorites with a total set at 42.5. For you keen eye folks out there, you'll notice these totals have gone drastically down already in just a few couple days. I wouldn't be surprised if before Saturday we see even lower totals than what we're seeing right now. Game number two, we have the Houston Gamblers versus the Michigan Panthers. The Panthers being a small 2.5 favorite with a total set at 42.5. I don't think this one changed very much. I think that everyone kind of still had this one as pretty low. Number three, we've got the Philadelphia Stars, the Bart Andrews-led Stars versus the New Orleans Breakers, with the Breakers showing a 2.5-point favorite, total set at 42.5. And for the fourth and final game of the weekend, Eastern night, the Tampa Bay Bandits versus the Pittsburgh Maulers. The Bandits have jumped to a 4.5-point favorite, and the Maulers, I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done here, but they got a nice little total there, 41.5, the lowest total. This league is I'm gonna be pounding unders at the very least. I'll tell you guys that much for free. But anyway, I've been just gonna jump right into it now. We got the last two teams on the USFL team previews, starting with the Philadelphia Stars, the dynasty that Bart Andrews builds. Some say question mark. I say certainly. Everyone who's listened to me speak on the subject knows I am a huge fan of one Bart Andrews, and I'm also a fan of the guy I'm going to start out with first, quarterback Brian Scott, a legend of spring football. He's been playing in the spring league since before I could even friggin' walk. The guy lives and breathes spring football. And what better person to pair him with than Bart Andrews, a man who looks like the mafia version of spring football. He is the mafioso, and Brandon Scott is going to get it done. The guy oozes experience out of his fucking asshole, and he's just... I couldn't think of a more perfect pairing of coach and quarterback. That is how much I love this team and this player. I love Brian Scott, and I absolutely love Bart Andrews. I think he might be the most ready-to-go quarterback. Next up, we have the tight end, Bug Howard, all-name team. The guy has just a fantastic... I want to say Bug Howard every week. I probably am going to say Bug Howard's name every week. The guy has the body of a wide receiver, so for a tight end situation that just allows so much flexibility around the field, the guy is going to be a stud. He has the athleticism to just ball out, game in, game out. The guy's going to make plays. Love this move. I love him a ton. He's been bouncing around the NFL a decent amount, so that shows you what they think of him. Love this guy. Next up, we have defensive end Freedom Akinmaloadan. I don't even know if I pronounced that right, but the guy is a studly defensive end. I think the Stars defense is getting slept on a little bit. I think the guy, he's got your prototypical defensive end build. He's got effort for fucking days. And I think he's just the perfect cog in this Stars defense. I love Freedom. He's such a good dude. And last, but certainly not least, we have wide receiver DeAndre Overton. He was a permanent captain at Clemson his senior year, despite not being a full-time starter. So that should tell you the guy's an amazing locker room presence. He's no, even if he doesn't play that much, even if he doesn't start, the guy is just going to be great for the locker room. He's the opposite of locker room cancer. Love this guy. And like he was behind a bunch of studs at Clemson during those times as well. So I'm thinking he might be one of these guys that kind of slips through the cracks. I think he still has all the talent to compete. Love this dude, and I think he might be a little shifty. He might be a little shifty here for the Stars. Ugh. Next up, the last team that we're previewing, the purple behind me right here, the Pittsburgh Maulers. And I think Kirby Wilson might be flying under the radar. He's not a coach very many people talk about. I think this is kind of where Kirby Wilson might start his legacy. His legacy may start here. Starting with their quarterback, the guy who I think is going to be the starter, one Joshua Love of San Jose State fame. He rose San Jose State up from the ashes. He was kind of a big part of this ascendance of the Spartans. They used, if for those of you who don't know, San Jose State was a terrible team. And Josh Love, he helped get him out. He helped get him to a bowl game. He's done so much for these guys. He's got exactly the anti-Nick Starkel, who's maybe has sent them back to the depths. But what I love most about Josh Love and why I think he might be the starter is he has a built-in relationship with a lot of these players already. And I think something like that, where you just have that built-in chemistry, is such a good thing to have in a league like the USFL. Speaking of which, we got wide receiver Billy Gaither. Bailey Gaither, guess what? He was at San Jose State with Jordan Love. He's bounced around a bunch of NFL teams, and I think that I'm going to assume that's usually a good sign for these guys. When they're bouncing around these NFL teams, I think that's that shows that there's something that these teams want. Even if there's like some things holding these players back, they have such good positives going for them that these NFL teams still want them. And he's a good special teams guy. We've said it before, again and again and again. Special teams guys are going to succeed in this league. You can play offense. You can play special teams. You're going to get a place. You're going to be cemented on a team. Love this move. Next up, running back Madre London. I've been talking about this guy ever since he got brought on to the Maulers. I love this guy. The ELF most valuable player last year. This guy was in fan-controlled football. He's played ELF. He's played in the spring league. He bounces around like a fucking ping pong ball. And he's going to bounce around through defensive lines as well. I think he's going to be a really, really good addition to what I can only assume is going to be a run-heavy offense. Next up, and last but certainly not least, wide receiver Trey Walker. My man, guess what? Another San Jose State guy. That chemistry building and building and building. He's a great deep threat, great downfield threat. Even at his size, he's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'11", 180, so he's a little bit smaller. But I think that just means the NFL didn't pick him up. He doesn't have the size for the NFL, but he might just have the perfect size for the USFL. God, that's it for the team previews. Now we just have the actual games coming this week. I laid them out before you. Now let me give you my picks. I will give you my outrights and my spreads and everything going on. Game 1, of course, Generals versus Stallions. The big start 'em off. Stallions are 3.5-point favorites, and I can only assume this is due to the quarterback issues going on in New Jersey. I think Louis Perez will get the start. I think my boy Lewis will get the start. And I think his experience, his know-how, his captainship, his rat kingness will lead the Generals to an outright victory. But I'm still gonna, even with this low total, I'm gonna take the under here. I'm gonna take that under. In the second game of the Gamblers versus the Panthers, man, I almost want to roll with the Gamblers here, but I think 2.5. You know what? I'm going to take the chance. I think the Gamblers get the cover, but I think the Panthers win in a very close game. I think in this game you might see some interesting extra points. You might see some combinations going for 2 or 3, and that could be all the difference. Love the under. I love the under in almost every single one of these games. Game number 3, the Philadelphia Stars versus the New Orleans Breakers. I just wax poetic about them. I'm taking the Stars. I'm taking Brian Scott. I'm taking them early. I'm taking Bart Andrus. I think the Stars get the outright win. And you know what? This is where I go contrarian. Over. Give me the over here. I'm feeling the over. I've had days to think about this, and I still like the over. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Tampa Bay Bandits and the Pittsburgh Maulers. Bandits have ballooned to the biggest favorite of the weekend. 4.5 points versus the Maulers. And I think that's downright disrespectful. Give me the Maulers all day to cover that. I think the Bandits win. I love Jordan Ta'amu with all my heart, but man, I think this Maulers team can compete. I think they have some pretty good pieces on defense. And I don't know, I think they could drive it out. I'm still not sold on Todd Haley as a coach. Give me the Maulers to cover at the very least. And give me the under. All day, every day. And I feel like going into the USFL season, we see the future scrolling down below me. I have to give out my pick, USFL Jim's pick, to win the whole thing. And I will let it be known on this episode of Spring Fever, USFL Jim is behind the Philadelphia Stars to win the inaugural season, the re-inaugural season of the USFL. That's right. Bart Andrus gets it done. Gets it done. Love you guys. Let's go USFL. No spring roundup this week. I want to dedicate an entire episode to the USFL. They deserve it. It's their week 1. Love you guys. Peace out. I want to see you guys Saturday. Tune in to Fox, NBC. Maybe the Garage will live stream something. We'll figure something out. At the very least, we'll recap it. Love you guys. Goodbye.